What's up, guys? So you have a startup idea. Now what? Now, in this session, we're going to take you through the key facets of a business model and the industry environment to help you build conviction that your startup idea makes sense before you start. It's not just a list of things to test in a coffee shops and with a live product to validate it. If you internalize all the key factors, you'll be able to rapidly evaluate each and every idea that you have and hopefully help you mitigate wasting time on ideas that are doomed to fail for reasons you could have predicted. If you want to know more, stick with me right now.
Ask Alex. Ask Alex. Because you don't know what you don't know. And if you don't know, now you know.
Yeah.
When you have an idea, you will have a torrent of thoughts, especially if this is your first startup rodeo. For example, will VCs fund my idea? No. Should I sell my house and just build this idea? No. Should I validate my idea? Yes. Will it cost me a lot of cash to validate my idea? Not really. Can I validate this without talking to customers? Yes. Should I talk to customers before building something? Yes. Clearly, you should start out doing the groundwork to really validate an idea. If you're not flush with cash, then you might be happy to know that spending money to validate your idea is actually the last step. There's a whole lot you can do if you understand business models to figure out if you are dead on arrival first, or if this idea is actually worth anything, and if it's worth spending time on it at all. And let me take you through the process, the thought process of how to evaluate a business idea. First, let's start by creating a baseline for your objectives to ensure the idea meets it. Now, is this a side hustle or your big idea? First, you need to set your personal expectations with an idea you will have. Are you doing a side hustle and want to make some cash? Or are you planning on going VC crazy and gunning for a monster exit? Both are equally fine, but there are large implications of both that heavily impact how you need to review that idea. Okay, so first with the side hustle. I wash out some startups, which are basically passive income. If I make a few grand a month from them and I don't have to do too much work, what the heck, right? But if you want to go big or go broke, then the bar is really different, not just higher. If you have a family, not a big risk taker, but have an entrepreneurial itch, then why not launch something small? You never know. This could grow and become something big in the future. Now, ideally, it's something close to what you do for a job or that it's your hobby. Okay? If you have experience in M&A, you could set up a course for budding analysts to get into M&A. Maybe you make models for PE investors. If you work in customer care, you might notice you built a handy little time-saving tool that you built for yourself. Perhaps other people would like that too. Why not polish it and sell it as a little SaaS business? The main benefit of doing something close to home is you really know what you're doing and you are the customer yourself. You know already that people need and want it. You might even know the market size and how much people will pay. That's really handy, right? Might you even build something and get your own company to be the first customer? If this is your goal, you need to view your idea through the lens of a side hustle. You might spend a few K on your savings, but you don't intend raising investment. So what you build has to be within the constraints that you have. If it involves hiring 40 people and doing field sales, you should probably drop the idea and look for something easier to ship and manage. Gunning for $1 billion? Well, if your goal with the startup idea is to make a ton of cash, which will involve raising a load of venture capital, you need to view your idea through an entirely different lens. The bar is 100x everything more than for a side hustle. It needs to have a potentially huge market. There needs to be scalable acquisition channels. You need to be able to recruit an elite team. You need to think critically of your unit economics, and you'll want to have special sauce that will imbue you with an enduring competitive advantage. That's a lot. Figuring out an awesome idea, which is VC fundable, is not easy. When you're analyzing a model, you need to think far more critically than you would for a side hustle. Again, Your idea might be fine for a side hustle, but you're going to drop most ideas as they just won't meet the bar for Investible. Okay, that's fine, but be okay to kill your darlings. Don't start something that doesn't make sense. Just because you want to do something doesn't mean you should. Now, how much do you want to sell for? This is a question I ask all founders that I mentor and do consulting calls with. It is honestly incredible that near 100% of people that I pose this to have no idea. They often say, I haven't thought about this. Now, whilst you care about your exit, it's all that investors think about. I've written about this in the blog, which I'll give a link to you to check out. It's called A Meaningful Founder Exit is not the same thing for venture capital. Now, if you're setting up a side hustle, you need to answer this question. How much do I want to make each month to make this worthwhile? It could be 5K a month. If you don't think your idea can generate this much income, then you need to kill the idea. If you are setting up a VC fundable startup, you need to answer this different question. What do I want to sell this for? And will someone buy it? There are a lot of implications for how much you sell your startup for. If your goal is 20 million, it's only likely to be, at best, to be funded by like a small angel round where they can still generate returns. That's the only way those numbers are going to work. If you're gunning for $1 billion, then yeah, you're big VC backable, but you're going to have to build something really massive. And that involves an element of luck, unfortunately. My recommendation is that you should aim to sell your startup for at least 200 million. Sure, that's still a large number, but VC's business model needs you to have the potential to be really large, assuming that things actually go to plan. For any VC fundable startup you are seeking an idea for, you need to write a large number and figure out if your idea can actually get there. If not, then you need to drop it and keep looking. Don't forget, it's okay to enlarge the market opportunity by redefining the market over time. Uber started out with a market for black cars and then redefined it as the market for mobility. That's a big claim, but hopefully you get the implication. Now, it's worth bearing in mind, though, that your pool of potential acquirers gets smaller and smaller as you become more and more valuable. There's really only a handful of companies that can buy you for $1 billion. The number for 100 million, though, is vastly larger, as it's 4 sub-100. Consider that the acquirers for different levels of success. Are there many people who could buy me for 200 million? Would anyone buy me for $1 billion? Or do I need to IPO? Additionally, is what you are building a potential financial or strategic acquisition. You get better multiples for a strategic acquisition, but then why are you really strategic? Okay, now we're getting into the weeds a little bit too much now, but there are some of the advanced level factors that you can retain in the back of your head when evaluating an idea. I ask myself these questions, but it happens in 20 seconds and not 5 hours. It's a quick sense check. Now, problem. Now, by hook or crook, you had an insight into a problem that most people have, and you think many people will share. This is always the first step. To be clear though, figuring out tech or a solution and then going looking for a problem is almost always a terrible, terrible idea. I wrote about this in a blog called Your Solution Is Not My Problem. I'll create a link for you to check that out. Now, your solution may sound good, but not solving a real problem is a key reason for failure. That's actually 42% of the time. You need to give pain a name. Name it and make it really, really specific, okay? What is this problem? What exactly is the issue? How is it being solved? And what's fundamentally flawed with that? It could be legacy architecture or archaic distribution strategy that would be too costly for them to actually change, which is fundamentally the innovator's dilemma. You then need to write that problem down and form a concise problem statement. This needs to be incredibly crisp, one sentence. If you say it to another person, they need to instantly get it. So that means no jargon and $2 words. It might take some time to get this right, but by being really clear on the actual problem you are setting out to solve, you will not get confused about exactly what it is that you're doing. Okay, now here's a good and a bad example. Bad. Help people make more money. Good. SMEs in England don't have an easy way to drive incremental revenue from the existing client base in an automated SaaS manner. Your problem definition is a hypothesis that you seek to prove or disprove. Now, when McKinsey seek to solve problems for clients, they first define a hypothesis. This enables them to focus on how they execute their engagement. Now, it's fine for that hypothesis to be wrong, but you need to have one at all times. Now, how painful is it really? How painful is a problem that you have articulated? Is it a broken thumb or is it a fly flying around your head? Okay, a broken thumb has the attention of potential customers. A fly is something that, is a little bit annoying, but you forget about it quite quickly. The most common terms here to define problems are vitamin and painkiller. A vitamin is nice to have. A painkiller is a need to have when you've got a problem. The more painful a problem, the easier the sale is, and the more successful you will likely be. Following on from the McKinsey learnings, you're looking for a big so what. You have a hypothesis, but there is a big so what or not with your idea that makes it meaningful. If there isn't one, then it's just not worth solving. The other thing to get to think about is, will people get addicted to your solution to the problem? If the problem is a one-off, your LTV needs to exceed your CAC by a multiple on one sale and not with repeat. Casper & Co., who do mattresses, they also sell pillows, etc., whatever, but people buy mattresses on average once every 7 years. Again, I made that number up. I actually don't know, but it's going to be something like that, right? So you need to be profitable on that one sale because it's going to be a long time till they buy another one. Buffer, on the other hand, is something that you keep paying for if you want to make content posting easier. If no one really cares about your problem, then kill the idea. Unless it's going to be a problem in about 2 years' time and you yourself are positioning for an industry change. Do think about the future market, not just the one that you see right now. The key thing you are solving for here is this really a problem worth solving? So continue the analysis. If not, drop it. Now, is this a priority problem? Once you believe this is a real problem, it's not enough for it to be a problem or a real problem. It has to be a priority problem for your customers. This analysis is best done for B2B startups, as it's a little harder for consumers though. Now, your consumers are busy and they always have some crap to deal with. There are never enough hours in the day, the budget and resources to execute on everything. If your target customer has a top 10 list of problems, you have to be in the top 2 of their top 3. Top 3 problems get attention and they get budget. You can frame your problem in the Eisenhower matrix. Ideally, you want to be both important and urgent in the minds of your target customers. But why is this important and urgent so important? Well, startups are default dead. You need to close customers fast and get the next ones ASAP. It isn't important and urgent. Your sales cycle will be forever and you won't make cash and you'll die, figuratively. Your sales team will not get meetings, they won't close, they'll get disgruntled, and they'll leave. I was working with an AI company, and let me tell you, we got meetings with regional CEOs, CMOs, CEOs of top 10 global banks and insurers easily. What we were selling was important, and it was urgent. It was of strategic import. The people we were selling to could see that the solution would get them promoted. If you're selling to a problem where a corporate target believes they will get promoted, do you think they will pay attention and try to get your offering bought and implemented? Darn tootin' they will. The vice versa applies equally though, unfortunately. Now, we need to get into the weeds of who your customers are, but you need to get clear about the solution you are building fast. Okay, solution. Now you believe you have happened on a great problem. You believe it's painful and it's urgent and important. You now need to figure out if you can solve the problem and in the smallest manner possible. You don't want to blow 50K plus on the first iteration. You want to fail cheap and you want to fail fast. Can this be launched with limited resources? The best ideas, given resource constraints, can be solved small. They can be launched fast. They don't involve millions of dollars. If you have built crazy back-end architecture, massive logistic network involving a lot of capex, etc., then you're going to fail expensively. Unless you have the cash, you can't do that. But sure, some people can. Can you solve the problem in a small fashion and still be compelling? With a broken thumb, you want some awesome ass morphine. If I was a drug dealer and I was like, hey dude, I got some vitamin C, you want some? You'd be like, fuck off, loser. But if I said I had, this legal OTC morphine made by, my grandma in this mystical garden, that'll take away all the pain and without addiction, you'd be like, fuck yeah, whoop whoop, give me that stuff, right? Ideally, you want to be able to code this up yourself or with a tech co-founder. You work hard to code something up in a few weeks and boom, you're good to go. A lot of founders want to go straight to an angel round and expect investors to fund that idea. That ain't gonna happen, buddy. Get it out of your head. You need to test your idea without external funding. So the key question you're solving here is, can you launch this fast without a ton of cash? Can you do this without any angel funding? If so, keep working on it. Otherwise, keep saving money and work on it in future. Sorry, not sorry. Now, is there a niche you can sell to? When addressing whether or not you can do this small, you're figuring out if you can launch with an efficacious painkiller, which, whilst it isn't as good as it could be with limited features, and as good as you'd like, the core solution or feature is enough for a niche of your potential market to validate it's needed. But who is your niche? Don't go down the path of trying to do everything for everyone at the start. You can't. You have to be super ghetto. You need to sell to someone. For Facebook, it's just Harvard students. If you can't articulate a niche market for your product, you're going to be struggling to break even though, or you're selling to anyone. 100 people who love you is way better than 10,000 users that just don't really care. So who is the tribe you are selling to and what features do they need? What can you launch with? Your goal is to be able to list in a very pointed fashion the exact feature set you will offer to your tribe. If you can't elucidate exactly what you're doing, you don't have a handle of your product. Knowing what you won't build and why not is also super useful, as you know enough to know why not. You're demonstrating to yourself you know enough and are disciplined to prioritize. If you can launch this cheap to a niche, what feature set do you need to provide to get going? Often you can start with a far smaller offering than you think. Common wisdom is, if you're unembarrassed by a product, you launched too late. So now, can this scale big? Now, kicking off making the morphine in the garden is great, but you ideally need to be able to get that to an industrial scale production over time. You need to take that special sauce out of the garden and be able to put it in a factory. Now, can you do that or not? You are fundamentally figuring out if this can actually scale. There are a number of reasons why this may or may not be possible. SaaS companies are designed to be able to be scaled. But what if you rely on selling a really expensive product to affluent people in cities in New York City and London? Are there really enough affluent people for this idea to ever scale to the size that you need? This will be obvious or not, but quickly sense check if there is a reason this can never get big. If it is just going to be too hard, then you might need to drop it. Now, competitive landscape. So once I know I have a cool problem to work on, I have an idea of what the solution could be now and what it could look like in the future, the first thing I do is competitive desktop research. Yes. You have to do this, right? Competitive analysis is the main reason I would kill an idea. To be honest, the moment I have an idea, I actually do a competitive analysis before even thinking about the solution, most of the time. It's just such a better use of time understanding the market before getting emotionally attached to an idea, which a lot of people have a tendency to do, right? Now, who is solving this today? Spend 5 hours minimum really digging into who the competition is. You want to understand not only what they do, but who they serve. You might just realize that there's an untapped niche you didn't think of and that you could super target at the start. Or you could realize that the competition is actually awesome and you just can't compete. If you can't realistically compete, that's good to know early. Kill the idea. This really is one of the most important key aspects of startup idea validation. Now, what things do I do to figure this out? Well, we'll start with the easy, most obvious one, Google. Find a market landscape matrix, find a research report, find any announcements and find out who the key players are. Note them in a list. See if there have been any acquisitions. See who comes up in the first SERPs. Also turn off ad blocker. See who's buying AdWords for keywords. Are there any good TechCrunch articles on the industry? Next, for example, SlideShare. Has anyone done analysis already so I don't have to? You'll actually find quite a lot of stuff on SlideShare, it's surprising. Next, Crunchbase. Once you've got a list of companies, run through them, figure out what year did they start, how much did they raise, what's the quality of the investors, did they raise subsequent smaller rounds or did those rounds get larger? Who are the similar companies to build out the competitor list? How serious are the team? You do similar stuff on AngelList. It's not quite as useful as Crunchbase typically, but anyway, read the description to understand what they do. See if there's any useful info or not there that you can find. Okay, then company websites. Study the main competitors. Who do they focus on? What does the product do? Do they look serious? Next, LinkedIn. Check out the management, the founders for capability. How many people do they employ? One sneaky thing you can do is read all the developer profiles because they often share too much stuff that they've been working on. Next, you've got Glassdoor. What do staff think about the company? You can learn a lot there, and sometimes the people who are working there will tell you what's wrong with the company or maybe even things that they should improve. Next one, like SpyFu. Get a feeling if competitors are serious, but this is more advanced stuff I do later on. Do they have a lot of backlinks? How much are they spending on paid? If you want the short version, I check Google for loose keywords around the idea. Try to find an article on what industry, which gives me a high-level overview and list of the competitors. Then I dig into the big players. I always go straight to Crunchbase and then AngelList and see how much they have been funded. If they haven't raised much, you might still be okay, but I really wonder why they haven't raised. Now, don't just think that your competitors are incapable. That's super ignorant. If they have raised a ton, you might be cautious and really wonder what the angle is. If they raised big and then did rounds which are smaller, then there's typically a big issue there. It's either that the market is not there, which is bad news, or that they're crap at execution, which is good news. Now here's an example where I realized that there might be an opportunity. My housemate was talking about professional translation. Look at Gengo, I said, immediately. Then he did a check. You can see on Crunchbase that the round size has got smaller. See the B versus the C round. Then I read Glassdoor reviews and realized there's an issue at this company. Now, I'm not super passionate about translation, but there could be an opportunity right now to do it better from that just little quick analysis. I would just decide if I wanted to spend more time on it. But the short version, there is a lot to learn from competitive analysis if you know what to look for. So, who tried solving this before? It's good to be a student of startup history. There is a veritable graveyard of startups who have tried solving your problem before. It won't be easy to find out about, but if you can, there is a ton you can learn. You can either try find all blogs, ideally a postmortem or Topsy.io has a list of modern failures, or better yet, try reach out to the founders and learn from them why their startup didn't work. Sure, they're not 100% likely to even talk to you, let alone share, but you can have a go. Frankly, you're more likely to get people to share when you're already live and operating, or appear like you are. We're trying to solve what Ubersnap tried, and here's the URL will go down better than we're thinking about an idea in this space, right? So this is so important. So from the analysis, you want to figure out if this is a market that you can compete in and win. Is there a niche angle for you to start in, and where? If so, then you can start getting a bit pregnant. If not, then maybe drop it and lament on the idea for a while to revisit. Okay, special sauce. To really win big, you need to do something special. There are fundamentally two types of market to solve for. Existing. If you're doing the same thing, it needs to be 10x better for anyone to care and move to you, away from your competitors. Zenefits is a great example of this. The free software monetized as a broker. It was so unfair that they got banned in the state of Utah. Now, the second type of market you have is new. You may think new markets are the best, but you're stuck with market education now. Your value proposition is going to have to be understood simply and fast, and you may need innovative marketing strategies. And let's face it, you're going to have to be able to pitch it simple, which most founders, seriously, are terrible at. So ultimately, whatever kind of market you're addressing, you need to be doing a good job, and you need to be different and better. Only in a new market, the bar for the product may not have to be quite as high. It kind of obviously depends, of course. Users may not be happy there is a solution that they don't mind how buggy it is, which is good for early adopters, but not for the mainstream. But again, you need to start somewhere. The best business models are when you not only do something better and different, but you have something which is unfair. You have a structured design mechanism that destines you for glory. There are 4 real enduring competitive advantages, in my opinion. The more obvious one is a network effect. See Facebook and LinkedIn. Now, these are always hard to start. A data expert is another. Then Google and search. Bing will never be able to compete with this. Next, government regulation or protection is fantastic. There's a company called MyEG in Malaysia, and it's a sole provider to the governments for services like work permits and the like. Right? There is no competition. Now, the final one is brand. So think Coke. But that's expensive as balls to build, right? So it's not necessarily going to apply to you. You could argue patents, but okay, patents have a shelf life of about 20 years. You need the budget to defend them. The minimum you need to budget for a court case is $2 million in America. And if you're going against Apple, you're going to lose anyway. For normal companies, what you can do, however, is have a flywheel. You do something which funds you getting bigger. As you get bigger, you have more funds to get bigger, and it perpetuates. It's not like a network effect, but it's different and more applicable. Next, you have unfair cost structure. Now, there are always ways to be really cheap. I was working with a client the other week, and they have a way to be 16 times cheaper than their industry. Sure, the competition could do the same thing, but it involves such a radical departure from their business model, they just won't. But when a core aspect of your cost structure is 16 times lower, it's just really hard to beat. Timing and new technical architecture. These are lesser ones depending on your model, but they could be important. Think Salesforce going to the cloud. If first to market really is important, however, often fast follower is better, by the way, then timing can matter. So sure, you could just launch without an evil plan, but I prefer to play dice with a loaded die. What about you? People who get rich have a model that just makes sense. It's smart. What do you have? Now, market size. The market always wins. If you're doing a passive income hustle, fine. A nice uncompetitive niche is gold to make maybe a 6-figure salary. That is awesome, don't get me wrong, but for grand plans, the market needs to be $1 billion minimum. So why does market size matter so much? Well, 100% of $1 million market is $1 million. Your market size sets a ceiling for your business idea. I've written about the market size being critical in a blog called How Big Can This Get? This market size question has killed many startup fundraisers. So I'll put a link for that if you want to check that out. Okay, anyway, so you need to know the market, but do it quickly. Someone might have done analysis for an existing market already. Try finding research reports. What does your monitor peg it at? Then do bottom-up analysis and think, there's probably 200,000 people that might buy this. At $59 a month, that would be 11.8 million MRR at 100% penetration, which is not going to happen. Is that good or bad if you get there? Now, if you are doing the VC thing, don't just think 1% of the market. As the core dudes say, why not take 30, by the way? That's actually true. But could you? Maybe. It's okay to think expansively when evaluating your idea. You just need to have a thesis as to why you think you can own the market. On this topic, one strategy is to actually dominate a market by doing something that actually makes the market smaller, shrinking it. But be so competitive that you end up owning the whole market. You can learn about that strategy in a blog that I wrote called Shrinking Market and Owning It, and I'll put a link for you to check that out. Now, things are harder if your idea is for a new market. You can't do a top-down analysis as no one's done the work for you. You need to make up some reasonable bottom-up assumptions. I would just think, is this a problem a lot of people have? If so, that's enough. I'm not going to harp on, but the market size thing is so important depending on your aspirations. Really figure out if there is a real money to be made and how you can target them and how much it would cost. So it's cool in the gang if your market is small now. It could grow, but you need to have a thesis as to what the drivers are that will grow that market. Are you tapping into an industry trend? Now, when I'm doing analysis to validate an idea, I don't spend too much time here. Market sizing to me is a bit like porn. I know it when I see it. If the market just feels too small, I drop the idea. If it feels just right, then I plow on. I would do a more detailed analysis before I pull the trigger though. Okay, so industry trends. What's happening in your industry? What's changing? What will the market look like in 3 years' time? If the market is going to grow, then awesome. A tiny market that no one cares about now that is poised to be huge is gold. You're at the perfect time to start. The corporates will view the market as a toy and ignore it, but it could be enough for you to stake your claim and position yourselves for when the crazy times happen. So many companies have come undone because the market didn't look like it was worth playing in. Desktop install companies were undone by the move to the cloud, e.g. Salesforce. But for new industries with no existing competitors, think about Coinbase. No one could give a shit about it a few years ago, but who's laughing at now? They're meant to be IPOing at a valuation of $8 billion. But also think about NFC. I've had calls with a bunch of older dudes who tried NFC with cool tech, but the market just never took off. So now they're dead. The reality is you never know, but having a sense that the market might take off helps you validate your idea for the long term and give you the confidence that you're working on something that might look like a toy now, but might be a Ferrari in the future. Really big companies have been built because they rode the right wave. Being at the right time, the right place can be more important than just doing the right things. The wave pushes you forward despite your incompetence. People who did ICOs made money. Okay, timing. Bill Gross at Idea Lab did some analysis on why startups succeeded or not. There's a TED talk that you should watch on it. Effectively what he said is that timing matters. Timing is a little different to industry trends though, as is the Y position on the slope. The right trends to yield you an awesome slope, but where you are on the curve matters. If you're too early, the market may be too small to sustain you. If you're too late, you might not be able to compete. I don't know how to get the timing right, but you should have a think. Given that's what you know, why now is the right time to start? Or not? Watch out for the need for market education. As someone who's founded or been part of monster companies and spent dickloads of money on marketing, like Groupon, Lazada, Delivery Hero, market education sucks balls. It costs so much money. In Asia before Lazada, no one was shopping online. Lazada was one of the biggest charities for founders, in my opinion, educating millions of Asians about shopping online. Millions. Now the competition just competes for the people we brought online. If you have to do market education, you need to get fancy with marketing, especially if you don't have a huge budget. Now think about Birchbox, who popularized the concept of a box a month and unboxing as a strategy. No one was searching for beauty boxes, so how do you do SEO? You don't, and probably can't. I have a monster blog to teach you about business models and strategy. I'll put a link to it. And one of the case studies is Birchbox. It's a long blog, but it's worth reading. Okay? It's something like, if you do this one thing, you'll be doomed to succeed. You need to have a think about how the hell you market your idea, whether you are in a new or an established market. If you're doing B2B, what is the install like? Do you need to do lengthy onboarding? Infusionsoft charge something like $2,000, but they sometimes discount offers for $300 to onboard customers. Can your unit economics afford field or phone sales? Can you do customer success or even customer care? If not, you need to design your marketing and your product accordingly. Think about your primary marketing strategies and question how easy it will be to find customers. If there is like a latent problem, you need to educate customers. Be cognizant of this fact. Okay, customer definition. Never sell to everyone. You need to segment your customers and then segment again. You need avatars for customers. Who exactly are you selling to and why do they use you? Be super niche at the start. Think about Facebook, Harvard, then some other unis, then Senate hearing committees, what's up? Don't build a CRM for everyone. Build a CRM for doctors specialized in infant mortality in the greater Atlanta region starting out. Now, I know that sounds lame, but do things that don't scale. I know that's not the perfect mapping to my point, but start small is the start to scale. The benefit of focus is that you can really target. Now think about how you do marketing. When you're testing your idea, you can do Facebook ads targeted at the doctors specializing in infant mortality in the greater Atlanta region. Do you think that targeting will have higher or lower conversion rates than targeting generic everyone? Fill in the blanks there, okay? Now, so use Canva, etc., and make really specific ads. Use Facebook and A/B test your custom audiences to those ads and see how they convert. If you can't identify a nice avatar and a niche market that you're targeting, this isn't the end of the world though. It's the basics of customer development methodology. You're just going to have a bit of a painful time figuring out who the actual customer is. But fine. It's not a reason to drop your idea. It's just listed as something that you need to prove for still. So unit economics. When you have no data, there is not a huge amount of analysis that you can do. And if you suck at Excel, it might take you too long to learn to be able to bosh out quick and dirty models. But you can do analysis to varying degrees. Before I commit to launch something, I do analysis on the basics of my theorized CAC and LTV and associated operational costs. I am good at Excel, so I can just bosh them out. I use very few assumptions, but I want to get an idea of what the operating model looks like numerically. You don't want to launch something where the fundamentals don't work. Doing the math will help you here a lot. Now, I helped a client build his financial model. He realized his business model would simply not work with his approach to CapEx. With that numerically clear, he reached out to the head of France for this really big company and got his tech on a licensing deal, which suddenly made his startup viable. Boom. He figured out before he went wasting more time that it simply wasn't going to work. That's viable, right? Yeah, it takes time, but if you ran the numbers, you wouldn't need to write a line of code before you knew the idea literally passed the numbers test. Now you can listen to my podcast on the two key tests that you need to pass if you're going to be fundable. I'll put a link to that. Now, I highly recommend getting an idea for what your CAC and your LTV will be. All startup is just a function of these two numbers. Your forecasts will be wrong, but you need to fathom what you can play with on the CAC side to get a sense for what channels you can afford or not. If your LTV is about $50, you can't afford paid channels with $200 CAC, which is your CPC by conversion rate. If you want to get into some more detail, Surprisingly, I have another blog about why you should build a startup and why passion is overrated. This is incredibly linked to what we're discussing in this session. Another recommended reading. By the way, it's called Passion is Overrated. Build a better mousetrap instead. Okay, so acquisition strategy. I talked about the market education, which sort of addressed this, but really clear on how, where, and how much you'll acquire your customers from. Okay, you really need to know everything about your customer. You really need to know. You really need to have one channel that's really going to work for you. And so, do you know what this is going to be? How scalable will those marketing channels be? Now, if it's paid, it's kind of easy. You just get ideas for search volume, CPCs, and then make assumptions on a conversion rate to get the CAC. I would inflate this number as it doesn't get cheaper over time as you scale, assuming that you actually plan on scaling, right? I wouldn't rely on something like channel sales at the start. It's just not going to happen, okay? Platforms are not interested in giving you their customers. They're interested in taking your customers. For enterprise, S&I is the same. Don't go there until you've already scaled a bit, okay? Now, if you are doing SEO, can you actually compete? What is the search volume? How competitive are the keywords? Like, if the keyword difficulty is going to be over 50, you're probably never going to get there. If you want to have a quick think about these, but if you aren't sure, that's okay. You can launch and you can figure it out. But it is something that you can develop a go or no-go thesis for, though. Okay, founder market fit. You should really question if you want to do this idea and if you're actually the best person for it. Founder market fit actually matters. You will only really kill it though if you know everything about the industry and you're an insider. You have the network for deals. You have a pool of talent to hire. You understand the why behind the what and the when. Sure, plucky kids can do cool stuff, and they do all the time, but would you prefer not to back an insider as an investor? Yeah, right? If you're building a VC funded startup, then understand that the team is 70% of an investor's investment decision. If you want to learn more about what an Investible founding team is, then I've written a presentation on the topic. It's called Investible Founding Startup Teams. I'll put a link on that so you can check it out on SlideShare. Now ask yourself if you are the best person to do this. If you're doing the VC thing anyway, but learn if it's a side hustle. Execution complexity. Now, there are reasons why people in Asia copy startups in America. You don't get it if you are in America. There's a contiguous landmass, and sure, there are state laws and stuff, but everything is basically the same. There is a ton of service providers, yada, 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 right? Try doing e-commerce when your logistics providers suck and you know you need to teach them how to do their own job. And I'm not freaking joking. At Azada, we had more data about logistics companies' operations than they did, and we had to teach them to get better. Everything is hard in new markets, so don't make any assumptions. Now let's pick up on enterprise. Sales cycles suck. 12 months plus is a nightmare, and it's real. I know, because I sold insurance companies and banks complicated products. One made an investment bank with the largest tech budget on the street said it would realistically take 13 months to be in production and getting those licensing fees. So good luck in the meantime. Now I can go on, but the point is this. How hard is it for you to execute on your startup? If you're in emerging markets, don't make assumptions that you have the ecosystem to support you. Now, investment thesis. As a final point, before you start, write an investment thesis. Explain why this makes sense and what you need to prove for this to work in the short term. Be explicit, and set out to test and prove that. Write it down so it's real. Now, I don't have any examples to share right now. I've been meaning to write a blog on how to do it, so you have to figure it out. Okay, testing. So we went through the fundamentals of a startup idea. That is real validation, not just a cheaper alternative to test your idea with AdWords. Once you really believe you're on the right track, it's time to actually do some startup planning. So how do you execute this? Well, if we're talking tech product, you need to figure out your starting value proposition. I talk in terms of minimal, desirable product, not MVP. There's a link. Here is the real reason to launch faster, not talked about. And I highly recommend reading that if you intend raising money. But it deals with the whole why you need to launch faster thing, okay? Which is product related. Okay, sorry, back to this. But you don't start with the tech. You want to do some testing. So do this, okay? Talk to potential customers. Do they like it? And will they pay you? Actually, pretend you already have a product and try and get them to pay for it already. That's the difference between talking and walking. Most people say they will like it and they'll pay to be nice, but they won't cough up the dough when you ask for it in your Starbucks, right? Next, the Starbucks ambush. If your market is consumers, ask your avatars in Starbucks in return for a coffee. Tell them it's your brother's idea, not yours, as they'll be more likely to be honest. People are generally nice and don't care enough to be honest if there is, even this inkling that it's getting weird for them. You can do a survey, post it on Facebook, Hacker News, Reddit, message people, whatever. Get feedback on the concept, the pricing, etc. You can chuck in a prize of an Amazon voucher. Ask your smartest contacts for feedback. Pitch them the idea. You'll learn, right? Yes, your idea sucks, and yes, you should share. You can only learn. No one is going to copy you. Pitch an investor if you've got the network. Again, pretend it's real and get feedback. Cherish negative feedback too. It's useful. The blog is more about, this session is more about, the fundamentals than the customer testing part. But if you check out the blog, then there's a graphic, which is pretty interesting and informative to get an idea about how much work you need to do versus the amount of customer validation. You can see an actual beta product is in the top right and the interviews in the bottom left. All right, so you need to then refine your pitch and product. Figure out if this actually makes sense. Then live test. Don't build the product first. Ship vaporware. Name the company. Buy a domain. Set up a landing page. Ensure your hero has a to-the-point statement and a CTA or call to action. Populate a pretty site which sells benefits. Set up Google Analytics or Google Tag Manager to track. Buy some targeted Facebook AdWords. The key is that you want ideas around what your CAC is potentially going to be. Post it to Quora, Reddit, Hacker News, Medium, startup Facebook groups, whatever. Then track your metrics. The goal is signups. Does it convert or not? And so, congrats. You have a lead list. If not, you failed fast, and that's good. Now, examples. I'm going to go through a real example of a consulting startup that I started this year. It's called Perfect Pitch Deck, and it helps founders unstuck their pitch decks and help them look fundable. So, what was my thesis when I started? Pitch decks suck. I know because I get them every day. There's a large market as there are hundreds of thousands of startups looking for investment, and there are competitors in the market already. So founders don't know how to write them and would pay for a service with guaranteed pricing. A lot of issues can be removed by simply redesigning them and rewriting the content. I'm the best person for this as I'm already an expert in pitch decks. Now, the unit economics will work under certain time constraints and being able to leverage lower cost base of certain countries to execute some of the work. The cost to launch the service will be low, and I can do it fast because I've done it before. I can acquire customers through Facebook ads profitably. This isn't a massive business, but the ROI is enough to warrant me testing it. So I launched it. You probably want to know, so I'm going to go through what the exact steps that I did to launch this business, starting with how I came up with the idea. Well, I saw someone doing AdWords for pitch decks and was like, what the fuck is this? So I checked out the page, saw that they had 8 people on the hiring page, so might look like it's a big business. Did a quick check, saw that they rated 500K on AngelList. I Google like who else is doing this and think, whatever. I'm not going to raise. Who cares about competition? But I kind of understand the pricing for it, right? Since I'm an expert in pitch decks, I have found a market fit. So I don't care as there's nothing, really to prevent me, or I've got to learn before I can start. I do an Excel model to understand the unit economics. I've actually did that live and posted on YouTube, so you can actually see me doing the model if you want to watch it. I'll put a link for you. Only cost me a site and some time to launch it, so I said, fuck it, let's launch it. So the next cheeky thing I did is I just copied their site. I copied everything. I did something super ghetto on WordPress. I bought a theme for $59 and hosted it on my servers, right? I've got a guide of how you can do this too if you want to check it out. Again, link in below. But I just wanted to get it up and get it done. So I paid a chick on Fiverr to make me a logo for $20. I set up Stripe. Then I got one of my girls in Philippines to set up my Google Analytics and Google Tag Manager for me. Then I paid a dude to build a pricing form on Upwork, which sucked. So then I paid a chick on Fiverr to build on Jotform, which works better, but it still takes time. It's a bit ugly, but fuck it, whatever. So now I'm down like $150. So I steal my own blogs from alexanderjarvis.com on pitch decks, and I post in the blog to fake content, basically make it look like there's something there. I steal my featured in type logos to add social proof to the site. I figure out how to do Facebook ads and how the whole fucking thing works, because I normally have people who do it for me, but I had to learn. So then I brainstorm the problem statements to market that in those ads. I use Canva to make some pretty little ads. I set up the Facebook myself, and I do some retargeting using people who actually read my blog, because since it's focused on startups, you think that they'd be interested too, right? I stopped screaming, fuck Facebook. Ads is such a goddamn crap platform. I get a customer for $380, and that's the first day that I started the ads. So I was like, holy crap, that was fast. So screw it, let's put in some more work. So I make the site a bit nicer. I set up some basic marketing automation and lead magnets for an email automation course. There's a step-by-step guide, which again you can check out. And then I get $22,000 worth of clients in 2 weeks. I make the site better. Some French designer says the site's terrible, so I learned more about design, redesign the site again. People start saying the site looks awesome. Cool. So I add a new lead magnet to do free pitch decks audits and start getting a load of leads, which 70% convert. The other people, most are just too fucking poor. I make a template deck, which is backed by AI analysis, which people think is cool. Clients start returning for other kinds of help, blah, blah, blah. So that's literally what I did to launch and test the startup idea for Perfect Pitch Deck. Why am I telling all this? Because I don't care if you compete against me. Conclusion. So, ending this up right now. Most of the work to validate a startup idea is on the back end and business node orientated. I'm certain most founders are not aware quite how much that can be done to de-risk their startup idea. The reasons for failure are so common. Of course, your assumptions may all be wrong, but I prefer to go into the market with my eyes wide open about what I'm seeking to solve for than just, winging it. Once you have done the groundwork, then it's time to apply what you've read or learned about CDM, customer development methodology, and get customer feedback. Yeah, that matters, but there's a lot of work to build a compelling thesis first. Okay, guys, I hope this guide was useful to you. I know it was kind of long, but you should be able to learn quite a lot and help you to mess up less. If you need some help figuring out if your business model makes sense or not, you can book a one-on-one call with me, and I can kick your ass and I can help you with your thinking and hopefully give you a better shot at not wasting your time on ideas that won't work and helping you become more successful. If you want to do that, as usual, head to Alexander Jarvis and there's a consulting thingy bob. You can work with me. Fun, right? Bye.